Jake Carson had 3 simple rules for space trucking: don't get involved, don't touch anything weird, and definitely, absolutely, never put your mouth on an unknown life form. And yet, here he was, kneeling over an unconscious alien woman, performing what was definitely not CPR, but something close enough to keep him from feeling like a total degenerate. Her body was warm, despite the freezing temperature of the moon's surface. Armor, half shredded, clung to her toned, muscular frame. Dark markings ran along her skin, shifting faintly as if they had a mind of their own. Jake didn't know much about alien physiology, but not breathing seemed like a universal bad sign. So he did what any reasonable human would do. He pinched her nose, tilted her head, and sealed his lips over hers before giving 2 firm breaths. A second passed. Then another. Then a sharp claw-tipped hand shot up, gripping his wrist in a vice. Jake barely had time to yelp before golden, slit-pupil eyes snapped open. For a split second, she stared. Confused. Feral. Then her body tensed, like a bomb about to go off. Jake barely got out a "Whoa!" before he was slammed onto his back, the alien straddling him, fangs bared, claws at his throat. "Hey, easy! I was just..." she growled, low and guttural. Jake froze. Her gaze darted over him, taking in everything, his face, his scent, his mouth, before narrowing. The growl softened into something else. Something purring? Jake didn't know what that meant. What he did know was that her thighs were dangerously tight around his waist, her breath hot against his throat, and she was definitely licking her lips. Then she spoke. "You claim me?" Jake blinked. "Huh!" Her clawed fingers trailed up his chest. "You perform the ritual of life breath. You take me from the cold. You offer yourself, asterisk." He squinted. Wait, you think?" Her pupils flared, a wicked grin stretching across her face. "Good. I accept." Jake barely had time to process that before she grabbed his head and kissed him back, deep. His brain short-circuited. Not because it was bad, far from it, but because this woman kissed like she was about to eat him alive, and frankly, he wasn't sure if she wouldn't. By the time she pulled back, her expression had shifted. Fierce. Possessive. Like she had just made a decision that Jake had no say in. "I am Zyra." She tapped her chest proudly. "And now we are one." Jake groaned, already knowing this was going to be a problem. "Lady, I think there's been a..." The ground shook. A distant thud-thud-thud rumbled through the canyon. Zyra snapped to attention, immediately grabbing for a weapon she didn't have. Her body language screamed battle-ready. "Okay, now that I understand," Jake muttered, scrambling to his feet. Up above, 3 ships appeared in the sky, their engines blazing as they descended fast. Zyra's eyes widened. "No," Jake sighed. "I take it those aren't your friends?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because the moment those ships landed and the first wave of alien warriors poured out, Jake realized 2 things. 1. Zyra was definitely a fugitive. 2. He had just accidentally married the most wanted woman on this rock. And the honeymoon? Was about to get really, really violent. Jake had been in bad situations before, bar fights on Mars, an unpaid gambling debt on Titan, and that one time he accidentally flirted with a cyborg's wife. But this? This was next level. He was currently hiding behind a pile of wreckage, an alien warrior woman pressed against his side, while a squad of very angry, very armed mercenaries scanned the area. Zyra, to her credit, wasn't panicking. No, she looked annoyed. Like this was a mild inconvenience, not a potential death sentence. "They track my scent," she whispered, pressing closer. "We must move fast." Jake, despite himself, registered 2 important facts. 1. She smelled incredible. Something between spiced honey and danger. 2. He was in zero position to argue, considering her claws were digging into his chest. "Right," he whispered. "Let's..." Too late. A deep, guttural howl ripped through the air. Zyra snapped her head up, fangs bared. They challenge. Jake peeked over the wreckage. More than a dozen alien warriors were spreading out, their leader, a 7-foot tank of a creature with a jagged skull mask, raising a blade. Then he pointed at Jake and roared. Zyra perked up, then grinned. Oh, good. They see you as my mate. Jake did not like that tone. He really did not like the way the giant aliens started marching toward him like a man on a mission. What? Why is that good? Jake asked, voice creeping into panic territory. Because now you get to prove it. Jake barely had time to process that before Zyra shoved him forward. He stumbled, straight into the open, now face to face with Mr. Skull Mask. Hey man, Jake said, raising his hands. This is all a huge misunderstanding. A fist the size of a watermelon flew at his face. Jake dodged by accident. Really? He tripped on a rock, stumbled sideways, and the punch whiffed past his head, missing him by an inch. The aliens gasped. Jake blinked. Skull Mask tilted his head, clearly re-evaluating his target. Yes, Zyra called. Show them your strength, mate. Jake shot her a wild glare. What? Show them my what? Skull Mask took another swing. Jake ducked, by pure luck, and the alien punched a solid metal wall instead. The force was so strong, the wall caved inward. Jake froze. Skull Mask froze. Zyra purred. Such reflexes, she murmured. He will make strong offspring. Jake wheeled around. Lady, please stop saying things like that. But there was no stopping it now. The aliens around them began murmuring. Skull Mask backed away, nodding solemnly. Then, to Jake's absolute horror, he knelt. The others followed suit. Jake turned to Zyra. I think I just accidentally won something? Zyra grinned. Yes. You have proven yourself. You are now officially my mate. Jake felt lightheaded. Okay, we really need to have a talk about your customs because A loud chime rang through the air. Zyra perked up. Then beamed. Perfect timing. Jake turned, and immediately wished he hadn't. A massive hologram appeared in the sky, showing a glowing alien elder with too many eyes and way too many teeth. The trials of mating season commence. Jake stared. Zyra purred. Jake groaned. He had a very bad feeling about this. Jake was in trouble. Not the usual kind of trouble where you can talk your way out of things, or bluff your way through a poker game. This was the kind of trouble where you look around, realize you're totally screwed, and wish you'd taken up knitting instead of space trucking. He barely had a moment to catch his breath before Zyra's family started lining up in front of him, all of them looking at him like they were about to hand him a royal crown. Instead, they handed him something a bit more terrifying, a sword. Not a small one either. It was the size of his entire body, with glowing runes all over it. Zyra grinned beside him. You are ready for the final trial. Jake swallowed hard. Final trial? What is that exactly? Zyra didn't even look at him. It's simple. Prove you are worthy of the title of mate. You must show your strength, your endurance, and your will to fight for me. Jake blinked. Wait, so I'm going to have to fight someone? She nodded. Fight and win. Jake looked around. These aliens didn't look like they were about to hand him a trophy for participation. They looked like they ate people for fun. A massive alien with 8 eyes and a 2-foot-long tongue stepped forward, holding his own glowing sword. The crowd cheered. Jake, for a split second, thought maybe he could just run. Then the sound of Zyra's voice filled his mind clear and cold. Do not run, Jake. You are my mate. Fight, or I will choose another. Jake didn't even need to think about it. Oh hell no. He took the sword and raised it awkwardly. You want me to fight this guy? Zyra gave him a half-smile. Do not worry. You will win. You are strong. Like the earth creatures with the most stamina. Jake hesitated. Did she just say stamina? Did that mean what he thought it meant? The alien he was about to face was a walking muscle machine with more teeth than Jake had ever seen in his life. Jake? He had endurance. He could last in a bar fight longer than anyone he knew. But muscle? That was not his strong suit. The crowd grew silent, staring at him. He had no choice but to make his move. Jake rushed forward, swinging the sword like he had no idea what he was doing. His swing missed. The alien smirked, stepping back and swinging his sword down in a perfect arc. Jake barely had time to react, dodging and falling face first into the sand. He scrambled to his feet, brushing off his embarrassment, and tried to swing again. This time, the alien caught his blade with one hand, pinning it to the ground. Jake's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't even close to being a match for this thing in a strength contest. But then, just when Jake thought it was all over, he remembered something that made him smile. Zyra's words, endurance. That was it. Jake wasn't going to win this fight with strength, but maybe he could win it by being annoying. He stepped back, pretending to catch his breath. His alien opponent snarled, thinking he had Jake on the ropes. Jake rolled his eyes and slipped the sword behind his back. When the alien lunged at him, Jake dodged, using the alien's momentum to trip him. The alien fell face first into the ground, and Jake jumped on his back, pinning him down. The crowd was silent. Jake was sweating, his heart pounding in his chest. This was way more physical exertion than he'd ever had in his life. But just as the alien attempted to throw him off, Jake held on tighter, just trying to keep his grip. Zyra's voice rang through his mind again. You can do this, Jake. Show them you are my mate. With one final burst of effort, Jake wrapped his legs around the alien's neck and pulled his arms tight. The alien flailed for a moment, but finally stopped moving. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Zyra was at his side in seconds, proudly holding his arm up. You have won, Jake. Jake took a deep breath. I didn't win, I just didn't die. Zyra laughed, the sound melodic and comforting. That is winning where I come from. Jake's knees nearly buckled, but he didn't want to look weak in front of these aliens. He slumped a bit, trying to catch his breath without appearing too tired. Now we celebrate, Zyra declared. Come! You are now my mate, and my people honor you. Jake didn't have time to respond before Zyra's people started chanting, raising their weapons into the air. Jake looked around, suddenly realizing he was not only stuck in a cultural tradition he didn't understand, but now he was part of a cosmic spectacle. He smiled weakly. Yeah, let's celebrate, Jake muttered. I need a drink. Zyra smiled back. You will have many drinks. But first, you must come with me to my parents' tent. You will meet them, and we will discuss the next phase of our bond. Jake blinked. Bond? What does that? But Zyra just tugged him along, and before he knew it, he was being pulled into a tent the size of a football field, surrounded by her entire family, all staring at him. One thing was for sure, Jake had no idea what the hell he'd gotten into, but there was no getting out now. Jake had seen his fair share of crazy, but this was next level. Standing in the center of a massive tent surrounded by the entire alien royal family, Jake realized just how deep he was in this bizarre mess. Zyra stood beside him, her hand casually resting on his shoulder like he was some kind of prize, which, considering the way the others were looking at him, he might be. Her parents, the alien equivalents of royalty, Jake assumed, sat at the front, their multiple eyes watching him with that disconcerting mixture of curiosity, and what could only be described as approval. They looked ancient, their skin shimmering in strange patterns that were probably some form of cultural significance. Zyra's father, an enormous creature with what looked like rock-hard plates for skin, gave Jake a long, slow nod. So, the human speaks. Jake, not sure if that was an insult or a compliment, smiled nervously. Yeah? I speak. And I'm really good at it, in case you're wondering. The father, whose name Jake still didn't know, grunted and exchanged a glance with Zyra's mother, a sleek, snake-like woman with fractal tattoos moving along her skin. It is good, the mother purred. This human has the spirit of a survivor. Not many could last the trials of mating. Jake wanted to run. He hadn't asked for any of this. The whole mating thing? Completely misunderstood. He wasn't ready to settle down, especially not with someone who could probably kill him with her pinky. Zaira, reading his discomfort, smiled gently. It is not just about mating, Jake. It is about strength. About loyalty. Jake managed a weak smile. Yeah, well, about that. He cleared his throat. I think we might be moving too fast here, don't you think? I mean, I just met you. And then we. Zaira's father snarled. There is no slowing down. When the bond is formed, it is unbreakable. You will prove your loyalty, mate. Jake's stomach flipped. Unbreakable? Yeah, see, that's where you and I have a small problem. I don't even know what we're. Zaira's mother, sensing his discomfort, stepped forward, her eyes glowing with a strange light. Jake Carson, you have passed the trials. You have won our respect. But you must also prove you can handle the next phase. Jake didn't like the sound of that. Next phase? He glanced nervously at Zaira. What exactly is this next phase? Zaira looked at him, the expression on her face something between fondness and determination. You will prove your bond with me. You will learn what it means to be a true mate. It is not just a title. It is a way of life. Jake squinted. I'm already living a way of life, lady. I just wanted to get through this trip without getting married to a woman who could crush me with a single kick. Her smile didn't waver. It is too late for that, Jake. You are already bound to me. Our offspring will be the strongest in the galaxy. And you, as their father, will raise them. Jake's brain short-circuited. He sputtered, looking between the alien faces staring at him. Wait. Offspring? The alien father gave him a sharp-toothed grin. Yes. You will learn to raise the next generation of warriors, strong like Zaira, strong like you. Jake was nauseous now. This was way over his head. He barely understood human relationships, let alone whatever the hell was happening with this alien family. Raising warrior babies? That was not what he signed up for when he pulled a near-dead alien out of a wrecked pod. The next phase involves your union, human. The mother continued, her voice silky smooth. But before the union can be completed, we must determine if you are truly worthy of our daughter. You must survive the bonding ritual. Jake was pretty sure his face turned several shades of white. What the hell does that mean? Zaira, still standing beside him, didn't look the least bit fazed. It means we will connect on a deeper level, Jake. We will bind our minds and spirits. It is a sacred ritual. Only the strongest can survive it. Jake blinked. His stomach felt like it had dropped 2 stories. He opened his mouth to protest but was interrupted by the sound of chanting from the crowd. Zaira stepped forward, extending her hand. You have been chosen, Jake. Will you accept our bond? Jake stared at her hand, the weight of the decision pressing on him. He glanced around at her family, these giant, intimidating creatures, all waiting for him to make a decision. He thought about the future. The offspring that Zaira spoke of, half human, half alien warriors. His heart raced. He had no idea what he was doing, no idea how to raise these galactic super soldiers, but one thing was clear, there was no escape. With a sigh, Jake finally extended his hand to hers. All right. Fine. I'll do it. But I swear, Zaira, if you turn out to be some sort of alien cult leader, I'm outta here. Her smile grew wider, predatory. You are no longer leaving, Jake. This bond cannot be broken. You are mine. The entire alien family roared with approval, and Jake realized, with sinking dread, that he had just signed himself up for a life that was going to be anything but normal. The chanting grew louder, and the final piece clicked into place. Jake Carson had just gone from space trucker to intergalactic husband and father of warriors. And that was only the beginning.